Well, who was in Steve's talk just now? Yeah, fairly technical. Okay, so this is fairly high level. Who here has heard of OpenStack? Oh, a couple of people. Who here has deployed OpenStack? One and a half. Okay. All right, good. Okay, so what I want to talk to you about today is OpenStack. And I clearly some of you have heard about it, many of you haven't. Who am I and why am I talking to you about OpenStack? Well, I am CEO of a company called Aptira, and about 2 years ago we were looking at alternatives for hosting and virtualization and virtual networks and all that sort of cool stuff, and we came across this thing called OpenStack, which was then quite new and raw, and over the last couple of years we've developed ourselves into the OpenStack experts for the Asia Pacific region, Australia and in India. And feel free to ask or stop me, because this is the first time I've done this talk, and I'm kind of alpha testing it on you guys, or beta testing it maybe a little bit, because it's got bits of other talks in there. So the other part of what I do is I started up a user group for OpenStack in Australia about 18 months ago, and also one of my colleagues started up an OpenStack user group in India a little bit after that. I'll get to all that in a minute. And I'm on the board of directors for the OpenStack Foundation, and I'll tell you what OpenStack actually is in a minute, so I'm just qualifying why I can tell you about this. There's a board of directors that run a foundation called OpenStack that runs this great big wonderful project that I'm going to tell you about. So that's me, and that's what we're talking about today. Okay, so the agenda you might have seen on the program today is what is OpenStack, who's behind it, the phenomenal growth of the project, the relevance in Australia, and it's particularly so, that's the thing I most want to highlight today, which leads me into the last part, the massive job demand around OpenStack. So, and hopefully if we get time, some Q&A about what it all is. So what is OpenStack? Can I ask someone in the audience, what is OpenStack? Does anyone have... Go.
It's software for deploying private clouds.
Almost. Half.
It's a scalable cloud operating system try to internet computing, networking, storage.
Yes.
And it offers a user interface in terms of dashboard view of the cloud resource and the way you can manage all those resources.
Yes. 7/8. Combining half and 7/8, what we missed there was private and public cloud. It's software for deploying cloud. Full stop. And with all those factors you mentioned there, and we'll go into that now. So above what the software is, though, it is more than cloud infrastructure software. It's more than an open source community, and it's more than a collaboration amongst technology vendors. What it is something that's kind of not really new, but very common. It's a platform ecosystem. And it's different to other cloud software and services, and it creates value for users. So I'm going to try and explain what a platform ecosystem is, because it's you could call OpenStack software, but like I said, it's more than that. What is a platform ecosystem? So let's look at a couple of examples now. There's three things that make up a platform ecosystem, right? There's the technology platform, the innovative ecosystem around it, and the user footprint. Now, where do I see that now in the world or on the internet or whatever? Biggest one that I can see is Apple. Okay, so you've got Apple with their iOS, they have their apps, the carriers, and the users and devices in so many countries around the world. You've got Android. Another example of a platform ecosystem. Apps, carriers, devices, users in countries around the world. So all these things make up a thing called a platform ecosystem. So I'm trying to get to the point here that it's more than just software. OpenStack has the OpenStack software, it has tools, services and software to plug into it, and it's designed to build private and public clouds. So what's the point of all this? What's the software made of? Let's work up through all those three components. Not bacon. The fundamental OpenStack cloud platform and where it started, and I'll do a brief history lesson of it in a moment, is compute, networking and storage, underpinned by shared services using commodity-based hardware with a dashboard, command line, API interface into it. And you put your PaaS, SaaS, applications, whatever you want to do on top of that. Now that's what it looks like in the marketing slides. That's what it looks like when you dig a little deeper, which is probably one of the worst slides I think I've ever seen in my life. So within this software architecture or loosely coupled set of technologies that can be joined together, you have the ability to use all of OpenStack or none of OpenStack or some of OpenStack. It's completely modular and completely componentized. What I mean by that is you've got these are the core, at the moment, the core components of OpenStack, and it's growing beyond this. You've got compute, and Michael up here will talk to you a little bit more about compute later. Compute's basically virtual machines or compute resources within the cloud. You've got object storage, pictures of cats, lots of pictures of cats. Block storage, which can underpin compute resources. Networking, software-defined networking, hot topic right now. Network virtualization, software-defined data centers. You see all that on the internet. This is one of the big technology buzzwords or movements that's going on at the moment. And this is connected by a dashboard, shared services, API layer, command line interface. So that's the software, I guess, in a nutshell. I'm not going to go too deep into details here. If Michael will dive right into Nova there after me, yes?
I might run away.
Oh, okay. So one of the cool things about OpenStack is it's quite a unique model, the way this whole project's come together. The releases every 6 months revolve around a design summit. The next one is in Hong Kong in November, and I'll talk about a little bit more about that a little bit later. So it's very much technology driven. If you have compelling reasons that or some sort of compelling technology need that you would like to plug into OpenStack, you can go to a design summit and sit around with a forum of people like this and argue the case to put your particular design parameter, whatever you would like to do, into the project in some way. So it's broken down into all these little projects. Some of them are kind of like, they're led by a technical committee, which I'll talk about in a little while, which Michael's one of the sole Australian members. So it's kind of a unique and a new way of developing software in a community collaborative process. To date, in the last 3 years, we have about 1,000 developers who are active contributors to it from over 50 companies. I think there's about 130 countries involved. And the leadership of these particular software projects is elected. So it's not really like Linux, where Linus sits there and says, fuck you, we'll do this. There is some sort of sense of democracy involved. So, as I was saying, there's about 231 companies involved with the project. This is in July, so there may be like 250 now, I don't know. I know there's over 12,000 members of the foundation, which is the body of people who make up the developer base and the evangelism base and the documentation base and all these other things, which I'll talk about in a moment. So, monthly contributions, code contributions. There's a lot of countries involved. It's kind of a big deal. So, the goal of OpenStack within this technology ecosystem is to transform IT. The goal is to be in every data center, in every server, in every network device, and every storage system. And I don't think that's an unreasonable goal. I mean, when you look at, some people compare OpenStack and the rise of OpenStack to the rise of Linux, but on an acceleration scale of about 10 times. And when you look at where Linux is now ingrained into most things that we do in some way, cloud, the ability of OpenStack to become that with cloud is quite feasible. So we have a bunch of diverse use cases about who uses OpenStack in the cloud. And I apologise, this is probably like kind of salesy pitch. I don't know whether you guys seem to be more of a technical crowd, so maybe I'm staying a little bit too high up here. Michael can mess with your head later in Nova, I'm sure. But we have a bunch of different use cases for OpenStack clouds around the world. My company, for instance, does a lot of stuff with business intelligence, like sucking data out of a classic example, pharmaceutical business intelligence company. Pulls a bunch of data in from pharma companies, works out where they need to sell more drugs next month. Pretty much scale on demand cloud computing resources, so that they don't have to have static workloads sitting there, static virtual machines sitting there, static networks. The whole thing is automated through Puppet scripts and things like that to pull data in, work out where we need to, where we're selling, where we're not selling, where there are people with particular issues that need addressing, and they pull this data in from a whole bunch of different sources and then spit it all out and provide business intelligence to pharmaceutical companies. There's big users using OpenStack. These guys, Bluebird, Comcast, Best Buy, have been trumpeted out lately. Comcast are looking, or they are doing their video and entertainment on demand system in the US using OpenStack Cloud System. So what's the point of all this? That's the point. The ubiquitous open source cloud system for public and private clouds to be easy to implement and massively scalable. So it kind of is like doing what Amazon are doing, except if you go to Amazon, you like this. Amazon will tie you up. You are beholden to Amazon. If you go to OpenStack, you have the flexibility, as you do with any open source system, to be able to design, build, operate, change, do whatever you want with your cloud system. Now, whether that's provided to you or whether you provide that yourself, that's the beauty of OpenStack. It is true open source. It's completely, in my view, going to be the ubiquitous cloud computing platform. So who's behind it? What actually makes this work? I've got an extremely brief history here. NASA and Rackspace. NASA had a really cool thing going where they wanted to do compute resources and they wanted to offer them out to contractors outside the company, but with all the security and all the rubbish that they had to go through, they couldn't do it. So they had to actually invent something and do something kind of on the slide to be able to offer the same sort of resources out to their contractors and things like that. So they put together this compute resource. At about the same time, Rackspace came up with a massively scalable storage resource called Cloud Files. And for some reason, the two guys got talking together. It was all down to one of the gentlemen at NASA whose father worked at NASA, worked at Rackspace, and was something to do with the leading edge heat shields on one of the shuttles. It was kind of a random thing, and they got together and they thought, hey, this code looks very similar. We could probably release this in some way and make a cloud computing platform out of this, which has never been done in NASA's history before. So they got together and they figured out a way to release this as an open source product with compute and object storage. That was it at the time. And within compute, they had some rudimentary networking controls and rudimentary block storage controls. So they called it OpenStack. The decision was made at the time to sort of hand the shepherding of the project to Rackspace, and Rackspace decided to make it into a foundation. This is where I come into the piece in some way. So the foundation was set up in the same way that the Apache Foundation is set up to run Apache, and the Linux Foundation is set up to kind of run Linux, except for the bits that Linux runs. It's quite a unique governance model. No one's really ever done this before on this scale, with this much input from so many vested interests that have dollar interests in cloud computing. At the moment, within the foundation, we have about 12,000 individual members, which has grown from about 5,500 since launch. We have gold and platinum members, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the key thing about the way the OpenStack Foundation is run is there's three components to it. There's the board of directors, of which I'm a member. There's the technical committee, of which Michael is a member. Now, we are the first and only Australians ever to be on that, so it's kind of cool, and we feel pretty cool about that. We both high-five each other a lot over that all the time. And there's a user committee that feeds back user input into the project. So what the board of directors does is they look at the strategic, the marketing, the legal, all the really fun stuff of how to guide this project through. Michael, as part of the technical committee, with they have kind of like little projects within in themselves where they look after the compute project or the network project or the storage project, and they decide the technical direction of the project, and the user committee feeds back in what the users are actually experiencing with OpenStack at any particular time. So, as I was saying, the beauty of this is that we've got technical people making technical decisions based on merit. I could not do Michael's job. He doesn't want to do my job because he's seen it and it's boring. So you've got highly skilled people who are working within this tiny framework of small little trees designing individual components of this project. Now, the beauty is, too, you don't have to use any of it or all of it or some of it. You can use all of it. It's very modular and very flexible. So these little components that are wrapped up, you can just take OpenStack Swift, for example, and deploy object storage. That's it. Don't have to do anything else. You can take OpenStack Nova and deploy compute. Use it, plug it into anything else. So, and those technical people that are driving those particular projects, passionate about it, and are making this into world's best product. The companies, the ecosystem of companies around it, making money. I mean, this is big business. This is Amazon at the moment are the big guys in the cloud space. They're 10 times ahead of their next biggest competitor times 3 or something ridiculous like that. But
who's the next competitor?
Next competitor to Amazon in cloud would be Rackspace. Mike can tell you about that. Next biggest competitor, but like so far behind in actual growth for every year. There's a lot of catching up to do. But as I was saying before, a lot of companies now, you know, I hear from this a lot, and companies go, oh yeah, we're moving all our stuff out of this Microsoft thing, or we're moving it out of this, and we're going to Amazon. It's like, well, okay, why are you doing that? You were committed with IBM or something, and now you're going to Amazon, and you're really not releasing any of the shackles. You're just going from one proprietary system to another. So what we're trying to do is obviously put forward this alternative where you can go to a system that is not proprietary. And one of the fundamental tacits of OpenStack's goal is there is no vendor lock-in. If I build an OpenStack cloud with Rackspace, or I build it with HP, or I build it with Aptira, or I build it with anyone, whatever I do there, I can take it to any other provider. Okay? It's the same way as you can write something on Linux, and you can transform it across any flavour of Linux, really. It's kind of inevitable that I think this is going to be successful, because we either all become Amazon customers in the cloud, or we don't. I don't know. So the project is funded, the foundation part of the project is funded by some key players in the technology sphere. There are platinum and gold sponsors. Platinum people put up a couple of $1 million every couple of years to fund the project, look after the foundation, pay the foundation staff to market and put on events around the world. The next tier down is the gold members, so they pay a little less money. My company, I've just stuck it in the middle there because we've just applied to be gold members, and you have to go through a whole qualification process to become a platinum or a gold sponsor. There are only 8 platinum sponsors, so unless one of those guys drops out, you can't become one. There will be only 24 gold sponsors, so unless one of those guys drops out once we get to 24, you can't become one of them. But you have to qualify your contributions, you have to qualify your evangelism, you have to qualify what your future plans are with OpenStack, what you've done. So I've just finished writing this great big diatribe that I have to go and present to the OpenStack board in November about why my company should become part of the foundation. There's some big guys that are there. You've got the 3 major Linux distros. You've got Canonical, Red Hat, SUSE. So everyone's as far as anything significant in Linux world is on the bandwagon. You've got the big hardware vendors. You've got HP, IBM, Dell. You've got the big networking vendors. You've got Cisco there. You've got, underneath the gold members, you've got 45 corporate sponsors. So within there, you've got Extreme Networks, Juniper, Arista, most of the networking vendors. So it's pretty, and Oracle joined up the other day, fun company. So, which is, I think there was bets on that at some stage. They haven't joined the foundation. One of the companies they acquired is part of the foundation, but they came out and had a press release on something about their Cloud X was going to be doing OpenStack compatible APIs. So they've pretty much joined the foundation by proxy, by buying a foundation member, and now they're going to be API compatible with OpenStack. So even evil companies are in the foundation. Microsoft are in there. I mean, you know, Microsoft are a really big contributor to the project. They realise that Hyper-V, the layer that OpenStack presents around Hyper-V, is important. But so one of the things that is becoming plainly apparent, and I'm going to go off script here, is talking to larger organisations in Australia and overseas, as we've been doing over the last sort of 12 to 24 months being involved with this project, is these businesses have deployments on vSphere or Hyper-V or KVM or IOVert or whatever the hell it's called. They have these various different deployments. And they're beholden to vendors like Cisco and Microsoft and everything else. And what they're finding is there's really no way to try and step this up from the level of just straight server virtualization into network virtualization or true cloud than to use something like OpenStack. I mean, there is no alternative out there. They can't have, there is no sort of framework glue alternative than what OpenStack provides. So, and this is from right up at the big guys like Telstra and Optus and banks and things like that are looking at this. Telstra's not an evil company. I love Telstra. They pay me, isn't it? Of course. Well, I mean, but the thing is, I mean, they have companies like that have huge interests in proprietary technology with their so-called clouds at the moment, and you know, either if they want to do cloud properly, I mean, when I say so-called clouds, they're kind of like virtualization platforms. They don't have on-demand virtual networking. They don't have a lot of the real things that cloud provides, the real utility nature of cloud. So what do? Do they go back to the vendor and they continue to tie themselves into the vendor? Or do they look for something like OpenStack that can pull the different vendors in together and provide a completely abstracted layer between the customer interface and whatever proprietary technologies they have behind? So that's something that we've been seeing a lot in the last, especially over the last few months, is these enterprises and government and like large telco, everyone is sort of thinking, shit, I really don't have any other way to go here, otherwise I outsource all my stuff to Amazon. So, which leads me to this, the phenomenal growth of the project. So, this project is just over 3 years old. It started 3 years ago with the summit, the design summit, and I think I explained before that every 6 months we have a design summit where all the developers come along and they sit around like we do here and they argue and fight and work out what the blueprint is for the release cycle for the next 6 months. So the first one in Austin, we had slightly more than 0 people. In Portland at the beginning of this year, we had over 2,500 people. In Hong Kong, which is very convenient for us, it's the first one outside of the US, we are expecting over 5,000 people to that. Now, that in 3 years is quite an achievement for any project. I mean, I would estimate that in maybe a year and a half, 2 years, we'll be getting more people along than VMworld. I think they get about 20,000 to VMworld. So it is, in attendance of these design summits, becoming increasingly hard to manage, and when you have 2,000 developers in a room that really want their piece of code or their idea or their information in the project, it is becoming difficult to manage. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. And it's kind of cool that the next one is outside of the US because it's been US dominated. And I'll talk about this in a minute, about cloud for the rest of the world, what this means, what OpenStack means for the rest of the world. I'm going to show you lots of graphs with lines going up. Developer interest, line going up. CloudStack is there, Apache, CloudStack, Eucalyptus, OpenStack, big red line going up. Something that's probably can be good and bad, 10,000 lines of code to 1 million. I mean, lines of code, good, yeah, or not, I don't know. But lots of lines going up. So the goals of the project as a whole is it's a community-driven innovation. It's not Amazon telling you, we're going to do this, this is what you have to live with. It's not Microsoft telling you we're going to do this. It's not anyone telling you. It's actually community driven. Mandatory interoperability between all OpenStack clouds, something I mentioned before. Whatever you build on any OpenStack cloud, if you have a bunch of Puppet stuff or Chef stuff or whatever, it will work on any OpenStack cloud, be it in your premises or in public clouds or any OpenStack cloud. That's a fundamental design tacit of the project. Empowering our users, the whole interactive, the whole community-based innovation is critical in empowering our users and developers to form this project into something that people really can use and need. And the whole goal of the foundation as well is to not have this driven by any single company. And when you look back at the slide I had before, there's some big money here, which will lead me on to jobs and things in a moment. So 3 years in, the project started with compute and object storage. Now we have a bunch of other stuff coming out, load balancing, database, metering, billing. We still have a ways to go between what we can offer in OpenStack and what Amazon offers out of the box. Quite frankly, you can get 50 different sort of products from Amazon. I don't think that'll take more than 12 to 18 months to really start pushing on their doorbell in terms of having parrot features. We have more public clouds now than Amazon has around the world, everywhere from France to Brazil to the US to here in Australia. The user adoption is growing exponentially. It is the centre of cloud innovation. So what does it mean for us here in Australia? Now, one of the things I've been saying for quite a while is OpenStack is cloud for the rest of the world. And what I mean by that is we get to build clouds here in Australia from the ground up. Companies get to build them from the ground up, put PaaS, SaaS, do whatever you want with it, without tying us to proprietary constraints governed by Microsoft, governed by Amazon, governed by any other offshore-based entity. So we can build sovereign, compliant clouds here. We can build clouds free of proprietary constraints. It has the ability to even reverse the brain drain. I mean, what's tending to happen is, we're all getting really good at what we do, and then we go off to Silicon Valley and work in Silicon Valley. Now, I'd really like to see that kind of stop. I mean, we can take this technology, build technologies based on OpenStack here, and start to be a world leader in cloud computing. And I've been talking to the GMO and New South Wales government and everyone I can, saying, look, get on this, please, because this is an opportunity to break us off from being tied to people like Microsoft, being tied to these guys who like, as I said today, Amazon is a river of money flowing offshore. Amazon's a big river, money offshore. We need we need to just have something like this to get the hell cloud technology, industry going in this country, and it's not just being recognised here. This is really catching on around the world, which is why OpenStack is being picked up all around the world. Every day I see, Venezuela popped up the other day. We've just put a new user group on in Argentina. Kathmandu, I was talking to the guy in Kathmandu last night. I mean, these guys are all saying, hey, we can do cloud, and we don't have to do Amazon. We don't have to do Azure. We don't have to do all this stuff that's out of our control. So that's really important. So the other thing, I mean, as I was saying before, organisations are realising OpenStack is the only way to glue their infrastructure together, because this provides that abstraction layer. So if you have a vSphere deployment or some sort of Hyper-V cluster or something like that, you can abstract it with OpenStack and cloudify it if you want. So you can provide that layer of OpenStack in front of it and give people the dashboard, give people the API, give people the command line interface into vSphere. And then you can start to take your workloads out of vSphere and put them into something else, maybe like KVM, maybe like Zen, maybe something zero VM, I don't know. Something that will release your dependency on that proprietary license, costly software, and then start to be innovative about it, because you're still constrained within that layer of that vSphere or that Hyper-V, whatever that proprietary layer, you're constrained by what they let you do. So, as I was saying, it's perfect for government. Really, government need to get on this and realise that this is their way forward. No more puppies, just cows. Has anyone heard puppies and cows? Puppies and cows? No? So OpenStack, it's a general cloud computing thing, is the whole reasons for designing application architectures in cloud is we get rid of the puppies. So in the old days we had puppies where we designed server farms and things like that. The server got sick. Oh no, quick, we need to fix this. Take it to the vet. We need to get this web server working again. It's a big problem. Let's get it working again and put it back into production. These days, you design your applications for cloud. Web server gets sick, bang. Doesn't matter. Get rid of it. The other servers take over. The other servers continue to operate, continue to serve, continue to do what your application requires to run. So it's the shift from puppies to cows is kind of one of the big motivators behind move to cloud. So it's not really OpenStack specific, but it's key. And we can avoid things like click fail. So as I was saying before, it's cloud for the rest of the world, becoming very apparent, lowers the barriers of entry for emerging nations. Democracy beats dictatorship anywhere, really. Except for North Korea, really. That rule's pretty well proven. I think it's a matter of time there. The internationalisation of OpenStack helps to level the cloud playing field. So as nations around the world build up their cloud knowledge, their cloud infrastructure, their cloud deployments and things, this will start to flatten out the dominance that people like Microsoft and Amazon have. Your data ownership worries, gone with OpenStack. You build a cloud here, you don't have to have the NSA looking at it because you're not putting it in some US provider who's going to get sniffed by the NSA. You'll still get sniffed by the Australian government, that's fine, but I would much rather go to court in Australia and try and get my data back than I would in the US. That's the thing that people forget about data sovereignty is, oh, that's fine. Like a lot of people aren't worried about data seizure and things like that in the US, but I would much rather go to court in Australia than the US. October Summit, first outside, massive surge in contribution from outside the US, especially in places like France and Russia, all over the world, and it's creating jobs all over the world. Classic example, last August up in China. Dr. Li Ming. I couldn't tweet his title, it was too long. But he got up, the first thing he said was OpenStack will smash the monopoly of the Western cloud providers. And I thought that was a prophetic statement coming from someone in the Chinese government hierarchy. So possibly it might broker some peace accords down the track, I don't know. Why it will become predominant? Fractured flavours of Unix. Why is Linux now the dominant system? Simple. and it's fun. It's something that is new to me. I'm new to talking. I don't know whether you've noticed. I'm not really skilled and don't you laugh. Yeah, it's something that I mean, less than 2 years ago, I got up for the first time and talked in front of people, and I've been talking in front of thousands of people around the world for the last couple of years. But I've met so many cool people who are passionate about doing something that they feel that they have control over, or they feel that they can do something that's innovative and developmental and just all this cool stuff that, you know, my history of working with Microsoft technologies and all sorts of things is just like never given me. So, and we drink lots of beer and stuff like that as well. So, this is the key thing for students. Massive job demand. There is zero unemployment in the OpenStack world. Zero. And I'm not kidding. At the Hong Kong Summit, if any of you go to the Hong Kong Summit, there'll probably be 50 vendors there, and I can pretty much guarantee that every single one of them will be looking to hire. Every one. I know Rackspace want to hire people.
Last summit, we were interviewing people at the summit and extending offers that week.
Yeah.
So we weren't knocking around.
Yeah. Zero. And the dollars... This is a US thing. I don't know how much that relates to here. I just got that off the internet the other day. The internet's true, of course. But yeah, there's... Yeah.
That's a question. What do you mean by cloud engineer? Is that infrastructure engineer or...
Cloud engineer dealing with what makes up the utility model of cloud. So it's not like a virtualization engineer specifically. You know, you're dealing with that whole on demand. You know, can I scale out? Can I hurry? You know, it's
actually part of the IT department.
It's
part of the IT department.
Part of an IT department, yes. It's replacing the IT department, the department of no. Right? Because all IT departments, the default is no. I've been there for 25 years. For about 17 of those years, I used to say no. Everything that would come to us, no. For new projects, no. Now, and what happened with that is everyone would just go, oh, okay, I'll go and deploy this on Amazon. Yes. Right? So.
I've just got one question.
Yeah.
Since you guys actually work on cloud computing and technology, since you guys it's cloud computing all the way, do you guys literally have physical offices or everyone just works from home?
No, we don't. We have no physical offices in Australia. We actually do have one in India. We have an office in India because infrastructure in India is not great. So we've got a beautiful office over there where our guys go and work on it. They don't even have to. They work on their 3G. But in Australia, no. Our head office is my house. Third bedroom in my house. So no, we actually do believe in that. We had a company ring us up the other day saying, oh, we'd like you to come and work. One of our employees rang me up and said, oh, someone rang me up, they're a cloud computing company, they want to come to work in the office. He said, what? Why? I can work from home now. I have my dream job right now. So why would I come and work for the cloud for a cloud computing company in an office? So yeah.
So the time that things are scheduled to end is pretty much come up.
Yep.
So you're associated, right? Like with your OpenStack.
Yep.
So if you want to continue in...
I've got like 3 slides, so...
but the thing is, there are some other talks that you would like to start.
Yep.
So if you're planning on going to particularly Shane Flint's software engineering one, I believe, so please just go to your schedules and then figure out if you need to skip the next bit of it.
Okay.
And then leave if necessary, and then you can continue. And I apologize for interrupting awkwardly like this.
Okay. No, that's okay. 3 slides really quick. That's what we're looking for. That's how it works. There's all these different things. You can get all these slides. Come to Hong Kong. Early bird pricing finishes October 4th, and that's me. Done. Thank you.